Welcome. These will be my thoughts on Fear the Walking Dead, Season 1, Episode 6, The Good Man. The episode is rated TVMA, so will this video be? There will be spoilers for the episodes of this show leading up to and including this one, and possibly the first 5 seasons of the main live-action Walking Dead show, since those had aired before this did. Another episode that I absolutely loved. I forget if I said in my video on the first episode of this show, but that was to me, very impressive season opener, show opener, and this is a really solid season finale. Really, really loved this season. I'm looking forward to more, but, moving on to another show, and then another one, and then I'm back to watching Walking Dead. Right now, I actually forget if the next one is a season of this show or a season of the main one when I return to Walking Dead, but I'll figure it out by then. Anyway, I think I will try to keep this chronological. So, yeah, I think the very first thing was you know what? I'm not sure how chronological this is going to be because so much okay, so I'll start by saying I thought it worked really well how chaotic this episode was. Like, this really feels like, okay, yeah, things are completely getting out of the National Guard's control. The government cannot contain the walkers. And I really love the decision to smash cut between, there's one part where a bunch of different characters are all killing walkers, and, like, geographically these characters are close to each other, and it'll cut from one character killing a walker to another character killing their walker, and on for, several. I thought that worked really well. And yeah, so the I think at least one of the first things was Daniel, and yeah, they're planning what to do, and let's see, they do call him Andy, don't they? That's also my name. I've never been in a situation where someone had to tell me not to shoot someone, but is that libel or is it slander when it's filmed? I'm kidding. I think, I love that Andy tries to appeal to Travis. And it is true that there are, I'm not sure it's universal, but there are some military, branches, I think that where it is, they'll learn, they'll be taught to read people and anticipate. And so that's what Andy is doing. He can tell that Travis is uncomfortable about this, even though, like, it's not that Travis has, what's the word? It's not like Travis just comes out and says, I want to free you. And at first he really pushes back, but he does end up letting him go. And ultimately, Daniel was right that they shouldn't have let him go. But of course, an argument could be made, would Andy be doing that if he hadn't been tortured? So I continue to really appreciate how this franchise, has us asking these questions. Because, like, yeah, there are some people who, unfortunately, they go out and do something terrible, even though they themselves either haven't experienced something all that terrible, or they're targeting people who are not responsible for the terrible thing that did happen to them. And also, sometimes people only do something terrible after something terrible has been done to them. I think the let's see, yeah, and also, yeah, the discussion, and Andy says, I can help you find them. And first he's, I'll, if you take me there, I'll show you. And then he says, I'll draw you a map, when it's just Travis, because he knows that, and it definitely, I feel 100% confident Daniel would not have let Andy go. And yeah, the thing about, what do you think? You really think he used to torture people and then release them? I think that does bring... I'm a tiny bit distracted because I just got done. I watched, there's two behind the scenes on the DVD, my DVD at least, of this. And so if based on accents, apparently the actor playing Nick is British, and one playing Alicia is, I'm thinking, Australian, and that just, I could not tell from their performances on the show at all. But yeah, really good job covering the accents. Anyway, yeah, so I really appreciated seeing more of, I'm afraid I keep forgetting her name, but the doctor, by the end of this episode, I felt confident she does want to do good, but she is like trying to make tough choices, trying to, do the right thing, even if it's painful, choosing the lesser of two evils. Yeah, sometimes she lies. But she really thought that this would be able to save a lot of people. And I mean, they have saved some. There was that, but yeah. And let's see, yeah, there's the part where she talks to Liza, and there's that thing about, well, we're gonna have to evacuate soon, and she's not forcing Liza to join, but she is pointing out, like, you really expect them to bring the entire... So in the behind the scenes, they called it a blended family, which just makes me want dip. But the anyway, yes, so the that's not even the right fucking reference. What do you blend? Smoothies. Makes me want a smoothie. But the yeah, you really think the entire blended family is going to be evacuated by helicopter? Like, that's not going to happen. The shit, I forget if they were already talking about the helicopter at that point, but they were definitely talking about evacuation. And ultimately Liza says, just Chris and Travis then. And later there's the thing about, what about Chris? They haven't gone for him yet. They're not going to. And it's the kind of thing she could have told Liza earlier, but she thought there might be a chance that Liza would keep working with her. So, or maybe she could talk her out of worrying as much about Chris. I mean, I have it on good authority that apparently everybody hates Chris. Is that show any good? I've just heard the title. I do like Chris Rock some of the time. Not so much when he's super misogynistic, but he can be unbelievably fucking funny when anyway. Yeah, so the let's see. Yeah, when push comes to shove, the doctor tells the truth. It's at that point clear, this is not gonna... Liza's not coming with. And she deserves the truth. So I think... Yes, I continue to really love... So by now, I caught his name. Strand. I did not realize while watching the episode before this one, but this time, I think, I had a little help. The actor's name popped up in the opening credits. It might have in the episode before this one, or maybe that was at the end credit, whatever. I was like, Coleman Domingo, I know that name. And then I listened to his voice a little bit more. That's Norman Osborn from the recent Disney Plus, Spider-Man show. So that's, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, that one. That's really, really cool. And it's such a different character. I'm not sure if I have seen other stuff he's in, but I'd like to. He's fucking amazing. I love the way that the character is not just like randomly evil. He's kind of, there's that line, if in the land of crazy, you have to be mad to survive, or something along those lines, and yeah, he's given up on society essentially. He's very manipulative, but he's always going for a goal. And I really appreciate the fact that like he actually did invite them along, and yeah, like I was not necessarily expecting him to, but yeah, if he thinks someone will slow him down, he abandons them. If he thinks they will help him, they can come with. Like there's a lot of people who have bunker, well, not quite bunker, but secure locations like that, who do not share with people that they don't know. And yeah, I think the next part is them executing the plan. And yeah, love the bit where we see Travis in the car, and then the camera pans over, and he's gone, and he's off. And Daniel going up, like, he really has a lot of guts. Just walks up to this tower where they're clearly holding guns. And it's just like, you should save your bullets. Check that out. And the soldiers that are like, oh shit, we got caught by surprise by the opening of The Walking Dead: A New Frontier. Shit. Review forthcoming. But let's see. Yeah, that was also, I really appreciated, in the first 5 episodes, there were not a huge amount of individual walkers. Like, we'd see them here and there. This one, like, a lot of walkers. Like, yeah. It's, well, let's see. I mean, yeah, there's parts of the main show and some of the games where there are also a ridiculously high number. But yeah, it's I appreciate that they saved that for the finale here. And let's see, yeah, I like them. So a bunch of them go into the facility, and there's that thing about, Chris, you make sure you watch Alicia. Alicia, watch Chris. That was, yeah. And the thing about, who's going to drive. And, yeah, slightly unfortunate divorced dad moment there of, here, you drive. I don't drive yet. Whoops. I mean, in his defense, he was saying he wanted to spend the weekend with Chris. It was Chris who turned him down. And I think, let's see. Yeah, when the helicopter, the helicopter was right there, and they see the place is overrun, so they just fly off. Because that's, it's military. If they don't think it'll work, then they're not gonna, even try to save anyone. So yeah. And I think that brings us to, so yeah, Strand, being like, well, I think that's our cue, and he can't find the key, and Nick has it, and that's a very nice little moment of like, yeah, because Nick, that's yeah, as a, as someone who he struggles with drug addiction, so he can pickpocket and such to get his hands on drugs or money for drugs, you know. And yeah, you know, they walk and all the for a second, it's, you know that thing where you see a word and you don't read the entire thing and your mind makes up itself about what the word said. At first I thought intern, and you thought your internship was bad, but no, internees. And yeah, they call for help, and Strand whispers no, because he thinks they'll slow him down. And I do appreciate, you know, we do see the others release a bunch of them, and that did not technically slow them down. So, you know, there is a... And at the same time, we also have no idea if they actually made it out alive, you know. So, yeah, I think that is when the... Right, and at first, you know, Strand was going, you know, there's the thing about, like, well, what do we do now? That's a good question. Melvin was my ride, you know, and I love, you know, he just walks up and he takes the cufflinks back and like, you can keep the watch. Yeah, because, like, you didn't buy his loyalty, Melvin, you know, like, you didn't exactly seem to care about him. You just took his contraband. That's so yeah. And the thing about, you know, Melvin begs him to kill him, and Strange is just like, you're halfway there, living on a prayer. And yeah, right. In fact, not only do the internees not slow down the blended family, they help them find Nick, you know. Which does technically also mean that if Strand had freed all of them, no one would have been able to guide them to the blended family to Nick. So, you know. Yeah, I thought the entire episode worked incredibly well, the way that they gradually, but not necessarily slowly, if that makes sense, increase the temperature. Like, it's, you know, it's already boiling point at the start, but it gets so big over the... Yeah. And I think that brings us to... Yeah, you know, they end up with their... Strand and Nick have their backs against the door, and then, you know, the blended family show up on the other side of the door, and Liza, you know, and at first the door doesn't, the lock mechanism doesn't quite work. It's just, that was really, really tense, and they barely get out of there. And, you know, it's no wonder they don't have time to push the door, to close the door again. The walkers are right there. And right, it was also really, really tense when, you know, so the yeah, Chris and Alicia hide in a car in a, you know, parking lot, whilst, you know, they worry there's someone dangerous nearby. And, you know, I forget which of them, but one of them is like, if they're walkers, they'll just walk on by, stay on the corner, right? That's what they do. And I just want there to be an outtake where Chris goes, okay, so what else? Told you about Skynet, told you about the time machine. I'm not the only person whose mind went there in a, you know, considering the context there. Anyway, the but yeah, you know, and the window is smashed in, and they're you know, dragged out, and a shocking number of prominent conservatives insist that you know, these armed, uniformed men did nothing wrong, as they, you know, use unnecessary force against innocent people. One of the best videos I've seen so far on Renee Good was recently made by Brigitte Empire. And let me see if I can recall the title. It was something along the lines of The Conservative Influencers Who Are Lying to You About ICE. Now, I think but yeah, and also, you know, one of them keeps showing interest in Alicia, and it's like, I mean, I feel like this guy probably knows that she's, like, you know, she's in high school, so she's underage. I'm not saying he knows that she's in high school. I'm saying since we, the audience, know, like, yeah, you know, it's, I think I actually don't know the age of the actor. I know for a long time, at least, they would cast 30-year-olds to play teenagers, and sometimes they don't look the part. I feel like she looks like, you know, but yeah, I don't know. I guess with the power outage, Grok is down, so we can't use that to digitally undress her. But yeah, you know, he keeps pushing for that, and of course Chris ends up attacking, and yeah, like, holy crap. And really nicely done on, you know, one of them hits Chris really hard, and then it cuts, and then when we, the audience, return to, you know, it's with the rest of the blended family, and it's, or what's left of them, and it's like, well, shit, did the military, you know, did they take her with, and did he die from you know, or did they beat him to death after, you know, off screen or something? But yeah, they took the car, and the two of them hid. So the yeah, oh my god, so tense when when Andy shows up and aims the gun, and you know, Dan tries desperately to, and he shoots her, you know, and it's so fucked up, and it's one of those things, like, yeah, I understand that he is upset because she didn't know he was going to be tortured, which I suppose, I'm not entirely sure if he accepts that she didn't know, but the you know, yeah, she was okay with him being tied up in the basement, you know. I appreciate that is a lot to process for him, but it's still really fucked up. It's one of those things, like, I'm not sure he really did love her. I think it might have just been lust in disguise, but yeah, you know, it didn't go down exactly how I thought it might, but I did, you know, mention, I theorized, you know, maybe he's going to become dangerous because of the yeah, I talked about it in that video. I think, but yeah, incredibly lucky that the bullet went right through, that they could save her. You know, that was not something Andy went out of his way to accomplish. He just didn't have as much time to yeah. And Travis, you know, he takes the advice of the other Barry Manilow, unleash the fury, and that was really effectively done. And I'm like, I don't know if this is the first time he's ever really done that as a character. I mean, is on the show, I mean, but in the character's life, or if, you know, maybe he knew he had this in him, and that's part of why, because he's always trying to de-escalate. He's always trying to talk situations out of, you know, yeah, it's it's very compelling, and it is, you know, I've said it in other videos, we all technically have the capacity for violence within us. We might not know exactly what it would take to trigger it, but I feel like the zombie apocalypse is a reasonable, yeah. And I really love the part where the fence was pushed, you know, that was broken by the walkers. I didn't really, like, maybe I'm missing something. Please drop me a comment if you can, you know, explain it, but I didn't really understand why. Like, it almost looked like the fence was blocking bullets, and it's like, that's not, it's not that kind of fence, you know? It's, yeah, I don't really, I think maybe the script called for, well, they just can't shoot because of the fence, and then, the effects department did what they could to make that work. Maybe there was some miscommunication, some, production design thing. And maybe it was the only fence they could get. I'm sure. I don't know exactly, but yeah, it. I certainly appreciate that they did need to. They wanted this to be as out of control with as many walkers walking as possible, and with all the ammunition they have there, how would they not be able to shoot a bunch, and then the others would like have to crawl on top of them, and that would slow them down, and that's not what they wanted. It's a tiny bit unfortunate. I think that brings us to, yeah, and you've got that one of them who, yeah, gets bitten, and they won't let him on the helicopter, and he is either a really big or not at all fan of Blade. I'm taller than you. I think that does pretty much, yeah. And the Liza tries talking the doctor into it. She's not having it, and yeah, like clearly off screen she offs herself, and yeah, like, what's she gonna do? Wait and just let it happen, and then hope someone finishes her off, and yeah, there's something to the fact, she showed Liza how to use that, I forget what they call it, but that thing to finish someone off, and then she is about to use it there. And I also appreciate that we don't see it because we don't really need to, and a lot happens in the episode. It's actually 6 minutes, I think, longer than most of the others of this season. Only the season opener was longer. I think that pretty much gets us out into the I agree with Strand. He and Nick's mom are, might really be able to get along because of this thing of like, well, if that's what you need to do to make something work, here we go. And let's see that. Yeah. So, and the thing about, they talk about where to go, and he points out, the yeah, instead of going east into the desert, they're going to go west. I didn't know exactly when it would happen, but I had read that this show would at some point take them to, by the end of the season. Yeah, I don't know if it'll happen off screen in between seasons or if we're going to see it at the start of next season, but they, this, yeah, it's not a spoiler to say, they're going for that boat, and that is a very interesting, that's very different from the main show. So very nicely done on that front. Yeah, so they arrive, and this thing about, well, the power's up. No, don't worry about it. Generator. If anybody's hungry, yeah. And I think that does pretty much just leave. So yeah, Liza, walks off, and Madison follows, and then Travis follows, and yeah, Liza is infected and does not want to go out like that. And I really appreciated her pointing out, hey, Maddie, you asked me to do it for you, and we again have the, you never really liked me that much, just, and yeah, ultimately Travis is the one who does it. And at first, he insists, like, we can do something, we can treat it, Right. I like the part where there's the medical attention, and then it's gracias, and she responds claro, which again I don't know that much Spanish, but I do feel quite sure that that is a reference to Clear Obscure. It's on my wish list. I'd like it. It sounds fucking amazing, that game. So no, seriously though, Claro is like of course or something. It's like what's the word? Like you're welcome, essentially. And yeah, she even tells them how to make sure that this does not kill Ophelia. I think that does just leave. Yeah, that was a really powerful way to end the episode and thus the season. Right, and I like the part where, the thing about, where's Abigail? She's not here, she's there, and the, the thing about, are you crazy? And then he says the thing, is that a yes? But yeah, that is a very, very clever way to, and he's like, I have to stay in constant movement. And let's see, what was the other thing? There's definitely at least one other thing there. But yes, powerful character moment, very emotional, that it ends with not only Liza, infected, will turn. That one of them has to finish her off before that happens, and it ends up being Travis. That's really, really powerful. You know, and that's definitely, it's there's several things there. One of them is that it is a major character death, which the franchise is good at, having happen every so often. I mean, others have, but those didn't hit quite on this show. I mean, in this season, they didn't hit quite as hard as this one. I didn't get enough time with those characters for it to hit hard, and I don't necessarily think there was, let's see. So there's, what do they call him? Cal? Something like that. In the first episode, there was the principal. In second episode, maybe? The first episode had Cal, is what I'm saying. Matt was also, but yeah, this, yeah. And it's the kind of thing that, now it really is just like Chris is the only person in this entire group that is not, he the only blood relative he has is his father, who's also really drawn to his new family. And yeah, even the Salazars, there's still two of them. Yeah. So they might be outside of the rest of the group, but they do have each other, and no one else is really calling on them. Whereas Travis, he has two stepkids. He's got, he's with Madison. It's a very, yeah. And I think that does cover. Yeah, really looking forward to more. So far, I'm not really seeing what it is people take issue with about the show. Like, I remember reading some of these complaints, and I've addressed the ones I remember over the course of these videos. And yeah, it's I don't know. Moving on, I am really, really glad that Strand is still. I was wondering if they were going to kill him off before the end of the episode, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of. Yeah, I really loved the part about, that's actually the oldest neighborhood that predates the city. I would gentrify the shit out of it. And I think does. So it went by fast, but I did appreciate the fact that, yeah, the you know, two of the youths grab like ice cream and sit outside, just, yeah. And, now that they have that option, and then the gunshot rings out, which was also a good choice. It's one of those things of, we can understand it because, like, okay, so, he has to kill someone he cares about, and it has to be very, very soon. You know, like, hypothetically, you could do it quietly with like a blunt object or something, but that would be extremely, upsetting for him. And yeah, so it ends up being with the gun, which, everybody hears, everyone at Strand's place hears the gunshot. And yeah, I think that covers. I'm gonna real quick mentally fast forward through the entire episode. Let's see. Right, I appreciated that we got multiple reaction shots of various characters as Travis is beating the absolute shit out of Andy. And I feel like there's at least one more thing. I don't know, maybe that was all of it. Let's see. So the right, and very clever that yeah, all those walkers that Daniel led there. Yeah, he must have opened the in order to lure. We saw him at those doors that they clearly had a ton of them behind. Yeah, it would be easy enough for him to, like, he just has to get something to break the lock, open the doors. They follow him. He leads them to the now open gate, and yeah, I think that does cover everything. But yeah, I did really appreciate when, so Strand lets them in, and then he's like, if anybody is hungry, help yourselves. If you'll excuse me, I have to go push Peter Parker to put on more costumes that sell toys, even though the character does not end up using the suit for terribly long. Once again, I love that. I love that first season. I'm looking forward to more of that show. That did feel real, like, product placement. We're trying to sell merchandise kind of thing.